Happy Coal Rush Eve, Mountaineer Nation. Carson Fox blacked out for you here for the Week 7 preview show as the number 11 ranked Iowa State Cyclones at 5-0, 2-0 in conference play are on the road at our Mountaineers, West Virginia, 3-2 overall, 2-0 in conference play. An 8 p.m. kickoff on Fox from Milan Puskar Stadium in Mountaineer, West Virginia. The betting odds, according to ESPN Bet, have the road team as the favorite, as a 3-point favorite. The over-under set at this game at 53.5 points, and the ESPN matchup predictor has this nearly a coin flip at West Virginia at 45.3%. Earlier today, the matchup history between these two teams has been back and forth over the 11 contests since these two, when West Virginia joined the Big 12 Conference in 2012 and these two teams started playing each other. West Virginia is 3-2 in these contests, 3-3 on the road. The recent matchup history is these two teams didn't play in 2023. In 2022 at Jack Trice Stadium in Ames, Iowa, it was a 31-14 loss. Devastating. Quite honestly, one of the worst West Virginia performances and one of the most boring one-sided games of the last 20 years. I honestly thought that this game back in 2022, after falling to 3-6, losses to Pitt, Kansas, blowout loss at Texas Tech, heartbreaking loss the week prior to this contest against undefeated TCU at home. This uninspiring of a loss in which West Virginia only produced 200 yards of total offense, couldn't get out of a 31-7 deficit against a then 3-5 Iowa State team until a minute left in the game. This was going to be officially when Neal Brown got canned. Now, the year before, in 2021, in Morgantown, exhilarating contest. 38-31, West Virginia defeated the then 22nd ranked Iowa State Cyclones, featuring a cast of characters that included Breece Hall, Brock Purdy, Charlie Kolar. It was really a Breece Hall fumble on the goal line that cost Iowa State 7 incredibly valuable points in a game in which I still don't know to this day if Bryce Ford Wheaton actually caught that touchdown pass and got his toe tapping the turf in the end zone. Still don't know. What a wild one. Brock Purdy valiantly tried to lead a late game drive, got down to the WVU 30-yard line, and ran out of time, much to the outrageous chagrin of head coach Matt Campbell, who just went ballistic over on the sideline. And it was that win in 2021 that really saved the starting career of quarterback Jarret Doege. Because then it gave him the next start against Oklahoma State at home. West Virginia lost in even worse fashion than that 2022 game against the Cyclones, 24-3. The next start at Kansas State was another loss. He then saved his starting job again against Texas, 34-28. And Neal Brown wanted to get to 6 wins with a win the following week at Kansas to get to bowl eligibility. But then it was Jarret Doege getting embarrassed versus Minnesota in the guaranteed late bowl, 18-6 back in like 2 a.m. That game. So this has been interesting. This series between West Virginia and Iowa State. I've thought West Virginia and Baylor have had very interesting contests over the last decade plus, but it's really become as of late, as Matt Campbell's gotten this Iowa State program to more national relevancy, and maybe more so this year than any year, even that 2019 year when they were ranked for the entire season, and West Virginia got crushed in Morgantown. So what's on the line for both of these teams? Before we get to break down into the 2024 matchup, what's on the line for both of them? I think to some extent for head coach Matt Campbell. I mean, got some revenge in 2022 at home, but wanting to get some of that back, being back in Morgantown. A lot of the seniors were then freshmen in that contest in Morgantown, but no Brock Purdy, no Breece Hall, no Charlie Kolar walking through the tunnels for the Cyclones on this one. But I think continuing to prove, now again, Big 12, as a Big 12 contender, an Iowa State team that beat Iowa, their in-state rival, for the first time in a long time earlier this season in a 20-19 victory. They have a schedule that sets up very nicely down the stretch here. UCF at home next week, then a bye week, then Texas Tech at home, Kansas, who's reeling on the road, Cincinnati at home, before at Utah, and Kansas State at home to end November and the regular season. So pivotal midpoint of the season for Iowa State. And then a sub-story, which I think I'm going to make a separate video here. For quarterback Rocco Becht of Iowa State, it's beating your Hall of Fame father's team that did not recruit you. One of the sub-stories for the plots of this game. For West Virginia, continuing the stretch. You heard me last week when I talked about it for the Oklahoma State game. You heard me talk about it 2 weeks ago for the Kansas game. Now this is the third of a 5-game stretch against teams that are currently or were previously ranked. The real murderer's row October, similar to what West Virginia faced in 2015. And head coach Neal Brown and his team have found their moniker. Last year it was 14-14, being picked preseason 14th in the Big 12 poll. This year it's going 1-0 each week, 1-0 this week. And that couldn't be more true, as they have to continue to stack wins, this one being very important, next week against Kansas State being very important, the week following at Arizona being important, to get to a Big 12 title game after losing to Penn State and Pitt earlier this season. It's Coal Rush, blackout night in front of a national audience on Fox, so it's going to be an electric atmosphere at Milan Puskar Stadium. Also, it's going to be a great weather day, 75 degrees and mostly sunny with a low of 51, and it always does feel warmer, even when it feels cold at night at Mountaineer Field with the 60,000 all stacked on top of each other. It feels warmer than it does at just 51, but going to be a great day for tailgating across the blue, green, silver lots and everywhere else in Morgantown. But for West Virginia is only 3-15 against ranked opponents in Neal Brown's 5.5-year career at West Virginia. Now, West Virginia did beat a 15th ranked Iowa State at home in 2017, 20-16. Remember, with Will Grier at quarterback, Justin Crawford at running back, and he had a great day, and the defense played sensational. This would be the highest ranked West Virginia win since West Virginia beat number 4 Baylor in 2014. West Virginia had the chance in 2018 against then-ranked number 6 Oklahoma, game I was able to attend, at regular season finale in 2018 for Will Grier, David Sills, Gary Jennings, and co., but unfortunately came up short. So biggest win since then, potentially, 2014. It's been a decade. So let's talk about what to watch for when Iowa State has the ball. Then I'm going to talk about what to watch for when West Virginia has the ball, give you my 3 keys for victory for West Virginia, prediction, and we'll head on out of here. So what to watch for when the Cyclones have the ball. 31 points per game. That's good for 9th in the Big 12 Conference, which is, right around middle of the pack now that there's 16 teams in this league. Iowa State does have the advantage, at one key statistic I see here, has the advantage over West Virginia in yards per play at 6.7. And that's a stat that I'm really putting more emphasis on and watching as part of my analysis of the Big 12's more up-tempo offenses versus Neal Brown wanting West Virginia to control clock in the name of complementary football. If West Virginia was last week against Oklahoma State, and it was awesome to see them run as many plays as they did, but if it's not going to be the case and you're running 70, 80 plays per game, I want to see that stat for offense, or I want to continue to watch that stat for offensive efficiency if yards per play, how West Virginia tracks for the rest of the season. So right now, Iowa State doing a really good job. Very balanced. 56% run, 44% pass. I would have thought it would have been a little bit more pass heavy, but listen to these numbers. 183 rushing yards per game, 244 passing yards per game. So a very efficient, effective offense. Now, Have they played the greatest teams so far this season? No. No. North Dakota, Iowa, Arkansas State, Houston, and Baylor. So they're not playing, the yesteryear Big 12 of 2018, notably. Like, let's go back to that year of how many good offenses were in the league that year. They haven't played like that kind of advantage. But everything for this Iowa State offense run through redshirt sophomore quarterback Rocco Becht, who's been a revelation for this program since he took over the starter last season as then a redshirt freshman. Played his way toward a Big 12 Newcomer of the Year, Freshman of the Year award. And, for a team that once Hunter Deckers and Iowa State, I forget the other running back, the starting running back whose name escapes me, were suspended for the entire season, pretty much dismissed from the team. It was about a week or two prior to the start of the regular season. Iowa State last year could have tanked. After, again, not being very good in 2022, their season could have went down the tubes. But because they found Rocco Becht and what he was able to do to transform this entire offense, that made the difference. So far in the season, 87 for 132. That's a 66% completion percentage for 1,173 yards, 235 per game, 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 19 carries for 55 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not necessarily the kind of runner like a Garrett Green or an Avery Johnson is, kind of like Shedeur Sanders, and has enough mobility that he can manipulate around the pocket, but isn't going to be one who's going to try and run and has more mobility than, say, a statue like Alan Bowman this past week for Oklahoma State. So he can really do it all, and he looks so mature, further along in his development than I would have thought coming out of high school. And again, I think I'm going to talk about that in a separate video. But he does it all for this Cyclone offense. Now, the rushing attack is split between 3 backs. Number 12, senior Jalen Jackson, a transfer from Eastern Michigan, previously Lamar. Just 48 carries for 295 yards and 2 touchdowns. Last week, he was awesome against Baylor. 15 carries, 107 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Also, Carson Hansen, a fellow Carson, all right, number 26, sophomore, just 41 carries, 211 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Last week, he was also on the ground and pound triumvirate for Iowa State and had a day. 15 carries, 97 yards. But also, this was kind of the guy that was projected to be the starter, or at least the 1A to 1B and C with Jackson and Hansen, was Abu Sama III, sophomore running back. Who alongside Becht was one of the reasons why Iowa State kind of had a bounce back year in 2023. 48 carries, 242 yards, and a touchdown. Bigger back than what I expected. I didn't know this. He was, he's over 6 foot, 210 pounds. Now, there might be some fibbing on the Iowa State football website, but maybe he plays a little bit smaller, but he's more compact. So that's going to be the rushing attack to watch for, and they like to run the ball, again, over 50% of the time. Now, for the last couple of weeks, if you've listened to my programs, you'll want to punch me probably. You're like, all right, Carson, you had your favorite trio in Kansas of across the Big 12. You had your favorite quartet in Oklahoma State. Well, let me tell you, I feel as if Iowa State has my favorite duo of wide receivers in this conference. Again, Tetairoa McMillan, my number 1 wide receiver. Take him above anybody. Travis Hunter, right there. Dual-way threat of what he can do on both sides. So those are my favorite ones. But my favorite duo of a team is Jaylen Nowell, the senior duo of Jaylen Nowell and Jaden Higgins. So the J names. So Nowell, 5'11", 200 pounds. He's 6th in the Big 12 in receiving yards per game. 24 receptions, 451 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the season. Higgins, the bigger of the 2 receivers, 6'4", 215, 8th in the Big 12 in receiving yards per game, 33 catches, 403 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And then the other pass catching threat that Iowa State has, it always seems as if they get some sort of tight end or even like a fullback tight end combo kind of player involved in their offense. It's now sophomore Ben Brahmer, 6'7", 250, so very same stature as Cole Taylor for West Virginia. Last week against Baylor, 2 catches, 49 yards, and a touchdown for Brahmer. So those are the 3 pass-catching options for Iowa State. And those 2 wide receivers split out wide are going to be a handful for whoever West Virginia sends at them at cornerback. Do we see more of Dantes Fagan, Aiden Garnes, Garnet Hollis Jr., Jacoby Spells, or are we going to see more movement in the safeties with Jaheim Joseph? Has really come on strong last week, especially against Oklahoma State. Aubrey Burks is back healthy after that scary injury from the Kansas game, and then Anthony Wilson. So have those safeties been able to help the corners at all a little bit, and also the linebackers in pass coverage? So defensively, what I would say of how West Virginia is going to guard this Oklahoma State attack offensively, the game plan really shouldn't change much, I feel like, from last week, despite that increased mobility that I talked about in Rocco Beck versus Alan Bowman, to continue to send pressure. TJ Jackson, Sean Martin, Fatorma Mulba, love what this front is doing and being able to create pressure. Now, Beck did throw a pick against Iowa and a pick last week against Baylor. The 2 teams that he that were really outside of Houston, I know is a Power 4 team, but the best 2 teams that Iowa State has played so far, he's thrown interceptions against. And I hope that a raucous atmosphere at Milan Puskar Stadium at night will force Beck into rushing a throw, making a decision. He'll want to have back post play, and the WVU defensive line can continue to create havoc in the backfield. So if this secondary can get an interception for the 3rd week in a row, that will precipitously increase West Virginia's chances of winning this ball game. I think the willingness to tackle in the run game, perhaps maybe due to the increased rest from the bye week before the Oklahoma State game, rested, ready to tackle, wanting to tackle, bumps and bruises, able to heal up a little bit. I love that that drive last week against Oklahoma State, that the guys were out there physical, wanting to tackle Ollie Gordon. Wasn't the same kind of namby-pamby, like let's just do arm tackles or hit him with the shoulder and not wrap, that West Virginia deployed against Kansas in Highshaw and Devin Neal. This was wrapping. This was gang tackling. I think you're going to have to do that again because Iowa State is going to be able to rotate backs. It's not just going to go all through one Ollie Gordon. They're going to get it, Hanson, Sama, and Jalen Jackson all involved. And then I think containing those explosive plays in the pass game. I mean, Noel and Higgins are going to be a handful. So if you don't just get burned like West Virginia unfortunately did in those 2 losses against Penn State and Pitt, play within yourself, play within your scheme, and just make the routine plays that you need to, and just not get burned. Keep it close for all 4 quarters. Just don't let them just waltz right down the field on you like was West Virginia was experiencing during the first quarter of the season. Now this second quarter of the season, at least what we've seen at the end of the Kansas game, getting that one stop on that final drive, and then again last week against Oklahoma State, looking much better. Now let's talk about the Mountaineers when West Virginia has the ball against this Iowa State defense. Iowa State is 6th in the nation and leads the Big 12 in scoring defense at 10 points per game. Now again, like I said, not playing world beaters. North Dakota, Iowa, Arkansas State, and Houston. Now, last week against Baylor, for the first 2.5 quarters, I think we finally got a more realistic view of Iowa State's defense. It was Sawyer Robinson and Baylor who battled Iowa State to a 26-21 game, and it was on an interception on 4th and 3 at the Iowa State 26 that changed the complexity of the game because Iowa State got back in it with a 6-minute, 13-play drive, putting Iowa State up 2 scores, and the game really got out of hand. And again, Baylor's really reeling. So this isn't, the numbers may say, and they've only allowed 6 touchdowns to this point on the season. For comparison, West Virginia's allowed 18. So some numbers to compare apples to apples. Also, Iowa State is tied for 8th nationally with 8 interceptions, doing a great job in the secondary of being ball hawks. 5th nationally, allowing just 133 passing yards per game. This multiple 3-3-5-esque defense will have the goal of confusing Garrett Green in coverage, mixing up their schemes, bringing pressure from different directions, and they do have one guy in the middle at nose tackle. When I was watching the Baylor-Iowa State game, I think he was off on the sidelines, dealing with a bit of an injury at this point in the game. But watch for number 95, big-bodied, 6'4", 325 Dominic Orange for Iowa State. Oh my goodness. If Goliath were a human being, I feel like he would be little brother to Dominic Orange. Just massive at that nose tackle position. See how much he gets involved. I really do like Bo Freiler, number 17 in the secondary. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife, does it all for the Cyclones, hits like a linebacker, covers like a defensive back. 3rd on the team in tackles with 29, 2 tackles for loss, an interception, and 3 pass breakups. And Matt Campbell, a defensive guy, for as high flying of offenses of the Cyclones have had over the last 5 years, the defense is their calling card. And that's something that travels. That's something that carries. If Becht is kind of, erratic, or this crowd gets under his skin, or West Virginia's defense continues to play stout, that this defense, West Virginia's had a hard time, I feel like, ever blowing out Iowa State, at least going back, almost a decade, when, again, they've changed under Matt Campbell, and they don't get blown out by too many people anymore. So defense travels. I do think, given West Virginia's 389-yard rushing performance a week ago at Oklahoma State, I imagine a Don Nehlen-esque approach to the WVU offensive attack. Run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, until the defense proves that they can stop it. Similarly to Oklahoma State, could not stop it. So that's what they're going to want to do with C.J. Donaldson, Garrett Green, Jaheim White. Feed off the crowd's intensity, pick up first downs, control time of possession. Hopefully, they choose when to go more up-tempo and when they want to use the entire play clock to do their motions, understand the scheme, what's coming to them. But again, don't wait too long to cut it loose. Get some numbers, and why I think there is a possibility, given how stout still this Iowa State defense is, but they did allow 187 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns on 25 carries to Iowa's Caleb Johnson. So while they're getting interceptions, seems like they're playing great in pass coverage, and their willingness to tackle. I mean, holding Houston to a shutout with Donovan Smith, still saying something. West Virginia can run the ball and do it with this Joe Moore Award offensive line. I think that's really, really good what I would want to say. I can't get too much until I see what West Virginia does in the first quarter, how that potentially adjusts the game plan. I think starting with kind of like a base feel of just wanting to run the ball, see how effective they can be, can maybe impact what adjustments that they make second quarter or post halftime, depending upon how successfully or unsuccessfully they can run the ball. I think that's going to determine everything. Special teams for Iowa State, 12 punts. This is junior Tyler Jenkins. Iowa State, like Oklahoma State, kind of does a split punting job. Tyler Jenkins has 12 punts on the season. He's a junior. Redshirt sophomore Jace Gilbert only having 7 punts. Both average right around 40 yards per punt. Perkins has a long of 53, 2 inside the 20, and 1 over 50 yards. Gilbert, on the other hand, has 5 inside the 20. So no numbers really to show for it from an average standpoint, but maybe Perkins is a guy that they want to, boot the ball deep with, and maybe Gilbert is one of your more coffin corner, short yardage punters. On the other side for Ollie Straw, numbers have dipped just a little bit in comparison to 2023. Just still 12 punts, didn't have one last week against Oklahoma State. Just 12 punts, 42.6 yard average, has that long of 57. Hope he's able to boot one in this game, and still 6 inside the 20. So he can pinpoint, locate it wherever he wants to. And special teams in close contests can sometimes be the difference. Returns, still nothing going for this West Virginia return unit. Whether that's kickoff returner Traylon Ray has had very few opportunities to do damage, and then if it's most of the time it's Preston Fox just standing back there in punt return yardage, waving up his hand and taking fair catches. So on the other side, still not much of a storyline in the kickoff return game for Iowa State. Just 1 on the whole season for 18 yards. Punt returns, Jalen Noel doing the punt return yardage, has 6 returns for 75 yards. That's a 12.5 yards per return average. Pretty good. Twice as much as what Fox is giving West Virginia. Now, I want to talk about this kicker matchup because I think here's some notes for you. So, I want to talk about redshirt freshman Kyle Conradi. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. 8 for 10 on field goals for this season, so he's missed 2. Has a long of 54. Missed an extra point last week versus Baylor, but he did have 2 fourth-quarter field goals, including the 54-yard game winner at Iowa on September 7th. So, ice in his veins. If he gets an opportunity against West Virginia from long distance, he's proven it before against Iowa State's biggest rival that he can nail one. I want to see what he does in this contest. Michael Hayes making a field goal to start off the game for the Mountaineers last week. Perfect 6 for 6 on the season of a long for 44. So, 3 keys to victory. Kind of told you what to look for on both sides with Iowa State's offense against West Virginia's defense, and then West Virginia's offense against Iowa State's defense. So I think first and foremost is the pass coverage. Pass coverage containment playing just as well as West Virginia did against Oklahoma State a week ago. Now, I view Rocco Becht in the same light as I do a Drew Aller or an Eli Holstein. 2 guys who I think the sky is the limit for their playing careers if they don't turn the ball over. And if the pass rush is as good this week, just don't let Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel kill you, because they are 2 darn good receivers in this conference. And still, I have just worries and PTSD from those September games of West Virginia's corners against whoever's receivers. So prove it. You've done it once. You did it once last week against the best quartet, using that twice in one video, against Oklahoma State in Stribling, Brennan Presley, Rashad Owens, Talon Shetron. So now do it against these 2 guys. So it's just going to keep upping the ante for these corners to continue to prove it out there. Defensive coordinator Jordan Leslie's gone to the box. It's helping him out to see the field a little bit better. So hopefully that he can dial. But the other thing, what I'll say is what killed West Virginia so much in that Pitt game and just drives me bonkers as a fan. I'm sure, you get shades of Pat Miller out there when Aiden Garnes was doing this all game long, is when West Virginia is like 6 to 8 yards off the ball, and then the first step is back whenever the play begins. A wide receiver runs 8-9 yards down the field, turns around, hits him square in the hands, and he's able to step across the line for a first down. And West Virginia's defensive back, most of the time Garnes can just shove somebody out of bounds. So first down after first down, pickup after pickup, nickel and diming you. So I don't want to see that. So just disguise your looks, get pressure, stop the run game, and be willing to tackle. I think the more physical team in this contest is going to be the one that wins it. Number 2, talking about the quarterback, Garrett Green for West Virginia. Wait until your wide receivers are open in the pass game, and don't rush the throw. Even improvise if you have to. and the offensive line give him time to be able to do so. Again, watching that Baylor versus Iowa State game last week, it seemed as if Sawyer Robertson was trying to pull off his best Patrick Mahomes impression. We kind of remember that from that Baylor game last year against West Virginia. He kind of did some of the same things. He held onto the ball, he held onto the ball, he held onto the ball so long, you just want to say, throw it! And like every single time he let go of the ball, he was getting hit, but he made some miraculous plays. There was one time, I think he was rolling out to his left, being pursued by multiple defenders. As he's getting dragged down, he flips almost like a lateral out to his wide receiver, who catches the ball and, picks up a first down. So it was like those kinds of plays. So if the first move, if your first, and we've talked about how it seems as if this West Virginia wide receiving core for a couple of seasons now has kind of struggled to create even many years with, Sam James, Bryce Ford Wheaton, that kind of that era of West Virginia wide receivers, it just seems as if this West Virginia's offense under Neal Brown has struggled at times for wide receivers to create separation. I don't know whether it's speed, I don't know whether it's their route running, whether the play design, the scheme, what have you, but sometimes it takes a little while, for the play to break down. Once the wide receivers run his route, and if he's not open, continue to get in space. Find the open space, find the open lanes, improvise with Garrett Green, and if he gets enough time from his offensive line to do so, that he can just, make some magic happen like he did against Oklahoma State last year at home. So that's what I'm saying. You're going up against a really good secondary, one that's been one of the best in the country, at least statistically so far this season. So if you're trying to get the passing game going at some points in time, either in complement to the rushing attack, or if the rushing attack isn't necessarily working and West Virginia wants to try and air the ball out deep downfield, wait till your guys are open. If it even takes an uncomfortable extra second and you feel like you're getting hit, it's going to make a difference, because that's how Baylor was able to be successful. Robertson was good. 258 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, did have that pivotal pick on 4th down that I talked about. Also 3 carries for 24 yards rushing. But what he had to do was he had to hold the ball long enough for his receivers to get open. The last thing, my third key to victory, Jaheim White. It was awesome to see him get involved last week against Oklahoma State. He played a tremendous game, best game of the season so far. I looked this up, and he is truly the offensive X factor for this program. When he gets to 100 yards plus, West Virginia is 6-0. Once again, West Virginia is 6-0 when Jaheim White reaches 100 yards on the ground or more. When he doesn't, West Virginia is 6-6. The 6 wins in 2023, Pitt, Texas Tech, TCU, that was all when C.J. Donaldson was really a one-man band, trying to incorporate in Jalen Anderson, trying to get Justin Johnson involved. Those were kind of the top 3 until Jaheim White finally burst out in the UCF game. And again, didn't reach 100 yards on the ground, but how effective was he against the Golden Knights? 9 carries, 85 yards, and a touchdown in that contest on Orlando. Also, in the Duke's Mayo Bowl against North Carolina, 12 carries, 50 yards, and a touchdown, 2 catches for 15 yards. So he was involved. And then also this year against Kansas, 6 carries, just 15 yards, did have a touchdown, also 2 catches for 16 yards. So even when he doesn't get to 100 yards, he's heavily involved. But when he gets over 100 yards, it's a victory. So get him going some way, somehow in this one. So I'm sure Iowa State's going to try and key on him somehow, but still try and feed him, get him involved. He's lethal. My prediction, I'm sticking with what I had during the preseason. I just have a really good feeling about this one. I don't know why, even, given, again, the Backyard Brawl loss, the Penn State loss, just feeling after that Pitt game like the season was just at a loss. But I just look at these numbers, look at what Iowa State's body of work is against the schedule they've played. And yeah, they can keep winning. In that Iowa game, congratulations. That was huge. You beat your in-state rival when West Virginia had served on a silver platter to give it your best go at Penn State, I felt like, and blew it like the Hindenburg. And then against Pitt, and you blew that one on the road. So Iowa State is doing it. They can win. And again, they do a lot of things right, and they're never going to get the kind of 5-star or high 4-star caliber players that make them national contender. But their development under head coach Matt Campbell, the coaching out there in Ames, like they have built themselves into a respectable program who likes to fly under the radar and on the outside looking in, and just sneakily, quietly have worked their way up to now they're 11th in the nation. Come on, like wow. I mean, good for them, but I think I see through this a little bit. I think they're a bit of a paper tiger. Iowa, I think, is down. I mean, I give them the benefit of the doubt in my top 25 polls throughout the first 6 weeks of the season and getting them into the national rankings, but then they just blow it. They just have such a blasé, vanilla, terrible offense. It seems like year in, year out. I don't care, if Brian Ferentz isn't the offensive coordinator anymore. So you won that game by 1 point. And then, again, the hardest opponent, I feel like, beyond that you played, Baylor, did make it a game deep into the third quarter. So I think West Virginia, pound for pound, talent for talent, is very close to Iowa State. They're playing this game at home, at night. This is it. This is big. This is huge. Like, here you go, Neil Brown and co. This is your opportunity. Ranked opponent, at night, at home. Like with your fifth-year senior starting quarterback, pretty much everybody's healthy. You're coming off a huge, road win for confidence purposes against an opponent that, you haven't had a good record against in the Big 12 as conference opponents. Now you're coming home against a very familiar opponent that you've had some really hard-fought battles in this long war of a dozen years in the Big 12. So now that you're back at home for 2 straight weeks, the first of 2 in a row, go out there and do it and prove it. So I'm going to go Mountaineers. I might be on a little bit on the high side, could be a little bit lower scoring than what I'm calling for. I'm thinking somewhere along the lines of 37-30. So yeah, 1-score game, but West Virginia covers. And I guess I just want to see how feisty defensively both of these two teams are. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little more lower scoring than what I'm talking about, wanting to play more time of possession. I think both of these teams will have a goal set in mind to win the time of possession for this game by establishing the run. So that being said, it could be lower scoring, but I really feel good about that number. I could see it playing out very similarly like the backyard brawl of 2022 where it was 38-31, kind of feeling each other out for the first quarter, then explosions of offense throughout the rest of the game, maximizing in the fourth quarter. And Becht is going to go out there and play his ass off, trying to win for his squad and try and get revenge over the Mountaineers for really not recruiting him. So 37-30. Love to know your thoughts on that, good, bad, or indifferent. Where do you think I'm missing some things? Where do you agree with me? What are your thoughts? How do you feel? What are some of your keys to victory? I gave you mine. Continued effort in the pass coverage game. Garrett Green, wait for your wide receivers to be open. Don't rush the throw. Don't want to just serve the ball on a silver platter to these vultures in the Iowa State secondary. And then Jaheim White, getting him going. He's the X factor. He's the catalyst. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog that I do this each and every week and have a lot of fun doing it. I'll be back on Sunday. Fortunately, not going to be able to attend this game in person, but I will be in Morgantown in the Green Lot partying next Saturday on homecoming against Kansas State next week. So won't be there. I'm going to be watching this game on TV. Excited to watch this Coal Rush. Love to hear your thoughts if you're going to this game, how you feel about it being a blackout Coal Rush and what you expect from the drone show, the new LED lights, and what they're going to do on the scoreboard. Tell me about, and if you do tune into this or do attend this game in person and then tune into my show on Thursday. Would love to know, some of your feedback. What was the environment like in Milan Puskar Stadium? So I'm excited for it. Hail West Virginia. Let's go, baby.